Gentlemen, it's your favorite paranormal investigator. My name's Tim Sudano. This is Paranormal Insight, and today I have on the show once again. She's back. She can't stay away. Actually, she bailed me out. She's a complete superstar. Her name is Michelle Desrochers, and here she is.
Hello.
Hello, Michelle. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Always happy to be here. Bailout or not, it's always a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Today's topic is, the title of the thing is called Wether. And this stems from a story I heard where an electrical storm really punched up the visibility of a bunch of spirits. And I think I've told this story before. On the USS Hornet in Oakland, my neck of the woods. It's a museum. You can board it and take tours. All the docents are former military, mostly Navy. And one time there's a storm coming, and I mean it's so bad. The ship, that's an aircraft carrier now. The ship is really starting to list in the harbor. And so it's dangerous to have people on. They're going to lock it up. And the lightning's crackling through the clouds. And one of the docents, he's on the flight deck. And he, as lightning's crackling, he's seeing flashes of history. And various men. And they look like they're in a combat situation. They have the older World War II uniforms on. They got their helmets on. And he sees old school aircraft on the deck and flashes all across the flight deck. And she bolts the door and leaves and tells his story. And he had such an amazing experience that it prompted him to go and do a little research because he saw one of the sailors' names. I mean, it was that clear. I mean, the flashes, one guy's running by him. Whoosh, 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 all these different flashes of this thing. And he looks up the name and he discovers the soldier was a real person. He didn't hallucinate anything. It's an amazing story. He tells it way better than I do. But I mean, I have not personally had that experience where a bunch of, actually, I take that back. I had just recently, we had a case in my neck of the woods, and hey, Heidi and Trish are on. Woohoo! Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, Heidi. Hi, Trish.
Anyway, they had really old wiring from 1948 in the house, so it was bleeding a lot of EMF. And the two ladies that are in this house are, it's obvious they have some insight. They have some gifts in their own right. And it seemed like this bad wiring was kicking off a lot of dangerous EMF, but it seemed to supercharge and even overclock their minds to the point where they could perceive all this stuff way easier than they should have.
Well, it helps. So, I think environmental stuff makes, I think a lot of differences. Let's take it a step further before we even start talking about weather. There have been a lot of researchers that I have come across over, the last couple of decades of being in the field. And a lot of them believe that when it's hot and humid, like anything else, spirits feel, way down. I'm kind of on the fence with it because I believe that spirits have a lot of connections to water because of, water has certain energy to it.
Sure.
But I've had people, for example, I used to get a lot of calls, in the summer when it used to get really hot, and I'd be, what's going on, and air conditioning season. So I would say, do you happen to have like an air conditioner on or like central air or something like that? They're like, yeah, we just cranked it on in the last few days. I'm like, okay, that would make sense because that dries out the air, creates like static. You have that electrical charge in the atmosphere. You'll notice like if you're using a shopping cart, you're always zapping yourself and things like that. And I'm thinking, okay, this has to be what it is. I said, indulge me with one woman who called me. I said, just indulge me and just turn it off for a couple of days. Just let it get warm in the house again, but give it enough time to see if there's any activity was going to amp up. So she did. She turned the air off for about 2 or 3 days, and she said everything went super quiet. She turned it back on, and within the 24 hours, started noticing things happening again.
Oh, wow.
So I thought it was a good experiment.
Yeah.
So
I bet she was the guinea pig for it, but
Well, I mean, you got to figure it out somehow. She
right.
lived about 4 hours away from me. I was like, I can't just pop by very easily, So, yeah, absolutely.
Hadi points out a similar thing. I'll read it. I recently was looking into unbalanced energies in the Schumann resonance and the correlation with any increase in activity. One of the first research results was that EVP and telepathy were amplified. That's very fascinating.
Yeah,
and kind of is what we're talking about.
Yeah, the second half of her question, which explains a similar to radio station and radio waves. Yes, 100%.
I didn't notice that until you said something.
Yeah, it sounds like I'm a host too, so I'm always got my eye on things that are moving. I know. It's tough, when you have another host on the show with you, we kind of get in it. I'm at a point when a host is on my show, so if you see something you like, just throw it up. It's hard to keep track of it all, So, but yeah, that also makes a lot of sense. Schumann energy is like a major. You're welcome. It's a major energy thing. Like, I mean, we're all affected by it. It would only stand to reason that so would anything else that is energy based. Right? So
makes sense. And that's kind of where I was going with the whole topic, because at this case we had a couple of weeks back, it was was it only a week ago? Oh, wow. This has been a busy week for me. Yeah, I know. For you, it's Tuesday.
Always.
But yeah. But we had, like I said, that wiring was from 1948. It had not been updated. They have aerials still. None of the wiring is underground, and they have such strange activity, and it was the gamut. Really, it was orbs, full-bodied apparitions, shadow people, and poltergeist activity. And she has cameras in her house, and she caught a chair kind of rearing up like a horse. Yes. And then she also caught a spatula dislodging itself from a plate on the stove and going whoop onto the floor.
That's insane.
Yeah.
But you know what? I think, I mean, it just gives them the extra energy to be able to, that they need to be able to move around. I don't think people realize that how much energy, I mean, unless you're in the field, you don't tend to realize how much energy it takes for some spirits to manifest, even the smallest things. People are like, oh, I'd love to see full body. I mean, I've seen full body. And it's just like, I know, judging by the attire, that they had been passed for quite some time and have obviously got it sorted out. But yet I remember also being, maybe 13 years old, and one of my grandfathers passed away, and my parents were like, go stay with your grandmother for a week. I'm like, why? Not having any understanding. What do I do that for? And of course I had to sleep. They had separate beds back then. So it's just sort of like, well, you get to sleep in grandpa's bed. Oh boy, So, but I wasn't weird about it, but it's like, okay, yeah. But then my grandfather was a prankster. So he kind of gave me a poke in the middle of my back, and I kind of jumped up. And I'm just like instinctively like, Grandpa, like I knew because I'm half asleep. But then I woke up pretty darn quick. And here he was standing full body. Hi, Michelle. Full body. So I got to see that. So that's some pretty intense energy, considering it only been gone like maybe 24 hours.
Yeah. That's pretty impressive, actually.
Yeah.
Usually they don't manifest that quick. That's kind of interesting.
It must have been the poke. I must have the holler I let out must have given him a good boost. Just draw on that, thank you. Yeah. I don't know. but yeah, it was always interesting, always interesting. But I mean, you get talking about temperatures. I mean, just cold spots. Let's look at the traditional cold spot, which is that spirits themselves can create. And again, the belief is that in order to manifest it, they have to draw energy in. I've had hot spots too,
Sure.
just saying, so I
Mhm.
think it's just whatever the case may be, they are manifesting via the energy that they're collecting, whether it be the traditional cold spot or hot spots, so on and so forth.
All right.
Right. So,
There's something to be said for having that. Well, it's interesting you mentioned hot spots and cold spots because it usually manifests, from my experience, in cold spots. If you
mhm,
use a thermal gun,
mhm.
you'll get the weird traveling cold spot that
Yes,
dissipates
yes.
eventually.
I'm sure there's also many logical reasons for it, but I know
Yeah.
this is where the validation of using equipment comes in handy. Seeing if there's when you're getting to that cold spot, maybe you're getting that manic EVP, or maybe you're seeing a light anomaly or some sort of an anomaly, sound anomaly happening to the naked ear or on camera or something
Mhm.
like that. Mm,
Trish
I,
asked an interesting question. Welcome to the chat, Trish, and Michelle was here too, and so Sab. Thank you for joining us. Trish asked a question about
mm,
seeing the face. Oh, her friend saw a demonic looking face in a twister. Is that possible? Like in the movies? Where that's kind of cool.
I
That's
believe
kind of cool. That's
anything is
anything's
possible. I
possible.
believe
Yeah.
there's so much. I'll give you the two my two perspectives on it. One,
Sure.
pareidolia. We see
Yeah.
pareidolia. We see faces and smoke and fire and flames and water. I mean, you name it. The clouds. We see
Clouds.
we see images and everything, which I like because it validates that we're very perceptive as to the details and things. However, when you're looking at something such as a twister, for example, there's so much energy in there, and it's such a violent force. It's a destructive force, but it's still a nature, a force of nature. I believe that there's so much energy taking
Yes.
place that anything can manifest within it. So two different sides of the
I
coin there.
agree. I agree. The pareidolia
Hmm.
absolutely is possible, but in a
Hmm.
twister, I find that hard to believe because it's in such chaotic motion. If you have a face that sticks and looks at
Yes.
you, kind of like
Yes.
Master Mole or Master whatever he is in Tron. Remember that big sportling
Yes.
thing at the end of
That's
Tron?
right.
Free
Yeah.
plug for Tron. Uh,
Yeah.
and face is spinning, 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 and then it locks in. So yeah,
Yeah. There it is.
that's kind of interesting.
Yeah. I love it though. I love it. But energy is in everything, and then the human mind does try to make sense of things, and pareidolia is a big one. And I think
Yeah,
it's
the
having. Go ahead.
I was going to say pareidolia is human, a leftover vestige of our hunting days. Where you look for faces, you
Yeah,
know,
it could
in the
be. Yeah,
camouflage. So it's so.
but that could
Go
work
ahead.
against you too, right? It's like it's I don't know. I mean, I've had
Yes.
interesting photos sent to me throughout, the decades, and have seen some incredible things. And some of it, there's no energy attached to it. It's like knowing your environment, because orbs tends to be a bit controversial in the field of the paranormal, but
Hmm.
yet orbs have been seen in ufology with cryptids. Thing is, when you're dealing with the paranormal, you're looking for these balls of light or energy, and I won't say there are no true orbs. There most certainly are true orbs. Our old
Oh,
home
sure.
you know, used to have orbs that would come out of the security cameras would catch these orbs that would come out of a mirror, just shoot out of a mirror, go up through a light, come out of the light, shoot through mirrors. We've had two. They would do things. They have faces. I mean, and this was a home with no
Wow.
forced heating. The home was vacant for about 4 months because we were just at our other home. Nobody was in there trapping up
Mm.
dust and all kinds of things. It was just, and it had boiler heating, so radiant heat. There was nothing moving anywhere. It was January, which was the most active month. For whatever reason, there was never that crazy before and never after, up until we sold the house. So you have to look at the environment and kind of say, okay, what was going on at this time? And it's hard for us as researchers because we're not physically there with the people who are
Yeah.
sending us the photos. But I've had people send me photos where they're camping and they're like, we used to enjoy coming here. We can't anymore. Look at all the spirits. And I'm seeing they're sitting under a bunch of trees near the water. And I'm going, okay. And I'm looking at the month. I'm going, okay, we're just looking here at a lot of moisture. We're probably looking at pollen, right? Pollen coming from the trees or leaves or just in the air
Sure.
from the
Sure.
the plants that are growing, in June and so on. So we have to look at the environmental side of things. If we're looking at moisture, well, if you're near the water and you have a fog coming up, or you just have moisture, there's so many things to factor in. And not that there's not a true one
Yeah.
in there somewhere, but there's so much
True.
environmental stuff that we can't necessarily trim that out of there easily.
That's true. I was of the thought that orbs were dust almost exclusively when I first started this,
Mm.
and then I had an orb fly through me on camera.
Mhm.
And you see me
Yeah.
react to it too. I scratch my stomach at first, and I scratch my arm as it goes through my back, out my stomach, and through my arm out the other
See,
side.
there you go. But that shows a little bit of a bit of an intelligence there too, which an
Yeah.
environmental orb won't do, right? Or dust orbs or
Right.
pet dander. I've had seasoned mediums post things online going, I've got all this spirit activity in the house. I'm going, you should know better because even I can tell that is total freaking dust orbs. Anybody who's seasoned
Yes.
would look
Yes.
at that and go, no, hell no, stop it. But
Mm.
you have unseasoned people who'd be just like, oh my gosh, you poor guy, you're so brave, or poor girl, you're so brave. It's just fighting off all this spirit activity. How do you live with this day after day? And I'm just like, you're a proclaimed medium.
And histamine.
Just saying. Like,
That's how she lives with it. Yeah. No, I get it.
yeah, right. Sobs. Don't get me started. I know. I'm sorry I said the O word. But I do believe that there are true spirit orbs. I've seen them. I've experienced colored ones that, we've had some at our home where you would just talk to them and ask them to come in, and they would come towards you, and then they would go turn around and go right back down the hallway, and that would be in coordination with voice recordings and things like that. And they show that intelligence
No.
as well, which
Yeah.
is great because you're interacting. You're saying, can you come back? Spins around at the end of the hall, comes back on the CTV cams, and just while we're sitting right there, and all of these night vision cams are set up,
Yeah.
and they're completely listening, and you see them going through the different cams as they hit different
Oh yeah.
areas
Sure.
of
You
the
can
house.
follow.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So
That's awesome.
I know I love it. But that's that.
He asked an interesting question regarding. Yeah. Yeah. And asked an interesting question regarding ectoplasm. Like, what are our thoughts on it? Or smoke fog, like waves going
Mm.
through an entire room. Oh, it's interesting you mentioned the smoke fog slash fog. This client I just finished up with in the house, but things kind of follow them. Like I said, they have abilities, but they're not well trained. But they showed me a video where it was almost like a little choo-choo train. You see smoke
That's
kind of
interesting.
popping up and it wafts in. But yeah, it
Yeah,
was fascinating. Kind of boof, boof, boof as it went along,
yeah,
and then it all swept away in one direction. It was really fascinating. That was also on their security camera.
yeah. See, I
But
love that. I
so
think that's
yeah,
fantastic. but because you're
Me
directing
too.
too, right? And
It
you're
was really fascinating.
watching things happen.
Yeah.
As far as ectoplasm, I've not, I'll be honest, I've been doing this a couple of decades and I haven't seen a lot of it. Maybe I would say 3 or 4 locations. One of these locations gave it up pretty easily. It was fascinating to
Hmm.
see because it was really gooey when we first saw it. You could almost like I can't even say it, like gel almost. And within about, I don't know, 10 minutes, it would just crystallize and it looked like icing sugar. It was strange. But that was on a surface. Capturing it on camera has happened where it's not like
Mhm.
the ectoplasm of yesteryear. And I say that with respects to,
Mhm.
let's say, when you see the old medium ship with all this ectoplasm coming out of their mouths, it's never been anything like that.
Right.
It's never been that extreme. I tend to wonder, like, we didn't have all the towers that we have now. We didn't have so many things affecting frequency back then in the 1800s like we do now. So was it, were they more powerful? Were the spirits able to make that much more of an impact because there was less interference? I would think with so much more energy to draw from that we would get better activity. But in a time where I captured the specific, what we believed was ectoplasm at the time, it just seemed like the spider web sort of thing just hanging in the atmosphere randomly by itself.
Hmm.
Didn't look like it was coming from anywhere. And you could specifically see it, but few and far between being able to photograph that stuff. But it's out there for sure, it is.
Yeah. It was a secondhand report. I didn't have any photographic evidence, unfortunately, but this one acquaintance of mine had a really haunted apartment, and
Yeah.
they they were we had was I there for that? No, I wasn't. They had some sort of gathering. People slept over, and apparently this thing floats through the kitchen area and into the fridge. And on
Mm,
the fridge, there's this orange colored goop that kind of drips down and then fades away.
crazy. Crazy.
Yeah,
See, I would
that
think
was pretty
that
weird.
because some people have experienced that
Yeah.
coming down the walls and things like that. You're sort of like, Jesus, like, what is that? But I'm a weirdo because I have to taste stuff just to see, is it okay? Is somebody fudging with me? Like when I saw that, when I saw the gel, I'm like, okay, it has no taste. Then it crystallizes. It's like in my head, I'm like, oh, I have taste now because it's like it looks like icing sugar. So I'm just like, and no taste to any of it. But good thing it's not like
Hmm.
detrimental to like trying like kill me off or something because it was like, why do people have that urge, or some people? It's like, okay, no taste. Just- yeah, young and foolish,
That's a new one
old
on
and
me.
wiser. Yeah, older and wiser. So the difference
I
20 years
started
makes.
something, and I first off I want to welcome Wayne to the chat. He joined us, and
Yes.
I started. There it is. This is actually directed at you, Michelle. Do you think that not all paranormal experiences can be passed of by the spiritual realm rather than entities in another dimension?
Hmm. I'm a
Yeah.
really big believer that things are interdimensional. Not everything comes from the spirit realm. I believe there's a lot of things that just pass through. I believe there are multiple dimensions in one space. It's almost like trying to listen to more than one radio station at a time. You can't. And I think a lot of that is the same thing. And that would be called, dimensional bleed through.
Mm.
And I truly believe in bleed throughs. I especially believe it with cryptids, coming in and out. Loch Ness is a perfect example of that. They look at it and feel that there's no way it could sustain life of an animal this big. So that leaves you with dimensional or interdimensional, multidimensional. Like there's so much. Even when John Keel wrote about that, the author of the Mothman Prophecies, he talked about multiverses and things like that. There is so
Mm.
much that we we don't look at everything as investigators. I think more seasoned investigators, because you've just been at it so long that you're just like, okay, there's got to be something more. There's so many new ones coming on board. I love to see so many, like a diverse type of people coming in with different perspectives and piecing things together, because I think that's how you get more answers, really, as if everybody just bouncing off of these different perspectives. But I do believe that we have to look deeper as well. I don't think it's just as cut and dry. I think there's different stages of evolution for all of us, and when we pass, we're still, our essence is still at that evolutionary state. If you die suddenly, for example, it doesn't matter how evolved you are, you could potentially be stuck and not realize you passed on. You would think that we would know to move, but we don't always. Sometimes we just sort of get shocked out of the body and go, what just happened? You're still going to find spirits like that grounded within this realm. But there are others who just come in and know how to traverse. In fact, people who can astral project or have out of body experiences, or people who when we sleep at night, I don't believe we just sit in our body and just lay there. It'd be like sleeping in your car in the garage. How many times have I said that? Sleep in your car in the garage? No, you're going to park the car, being the vessel, and you're just going to go off. And that includes dimensional. Personal thought.
That'd be a fascinating experience to have. I'd love to try that. If I could.
Yeah. Just do it.
And I've also heard that, as you were saying, that, well, I guess more to clarify, that when you do astral project, you can actually visualize all the spiritual activity around you.
And any out of body. You leave the body, The experiences are, you can visualize pretty much where you want to go. I mean, it's like lucid dreaming. I used to be able to lucid dream to the point where I'm like, I really like this. I could rewind, fast forward. I could also go night after night. I could continue off exactly where I left off. Or if I said, well, I really want to start back over here because I really had a lot of fun over here, or I was very curious about this spot, I could go back to it and move on. I was completely in control of the entire my dreamscape, and I could connect with other people if I wanted to see them. Things like that. I could call in loved ones and visit with them. Then you have children, people, and that changes things, because you don't ever freaking sleep again. One eye open, which means you can't get into a good lucid dream. But I think that's the start.
Did you just say children, people?
I know. I know. Right? I did.
I'm not sure what that is.
I wouldn't trade it for the world, personally. I mean, they're all adults now, but I wouldn't trade it for the world, obviously, but okay. It does change things. I believe that lucid dreaming is the beginning to being able to train yourself to have an out-of-body experience. It's not that you need it, but I think for those who maybe struggle to achieve an OBE or astral travel, that concentrating on lucid dreaming and retraining the brain is a really good way to start.
Okay. Well, I'm all for that, and you're more the expert on that than I am.
Well, I'm not an expert, but I'm a dabbler. So I am a dabbler. So yeah, but yeah. So, but again, temperature is cool. So you ever notice, like you and I initially mentioned thunderstorms. I have always been a lover of thunderstorms, lightning. The louder, the better. I love high winds. I love listening to the rain. If I don't get it in real time, I used to always listen to sounds, and it was always thunderstorms. Sometimes you have apps where you can mix different thunderstorms, like tropical ones or spooky ones or different areas. So I would really intensify them. And that's how I would fall asleep. So it's interesting because we are made up of water and energy, right? Yeah. So, which is very, very cool. But it is suggested, of course, cool. Right, with thunderstorms, that the energy in the atmosphere creates enough energy to help with spirit. So it kind of makes you wonder, if these extreme, is it the lightning because I mean that delivers a real bang of energy, literally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Is it
Right.
that maybe ghosts are again, they can connect to that energy? You're looking at there's a lot of that stuff that comes out of England because it's always raining in England. So is it the water during during the storm? What is it that
Could
draws
be.
them?
I'd be curious to know if Tesla, I mean, big electricity guy, he just knew that like he had it as a pet practically. I'm curious to know if he ever experienced any spiritual activity around all of his experiments.
Tesla dabbled in so much, even when he created, his communication device. That he's the true father of the ghost box, as people say. He is the true father of that, and he believed even in creating that. He did believe, obviously, in something, but even though it was titled the ghost box, he believed he was talking to beings, Martians, beings from other worlds. He never ever came out and said, "I'm speaking to spirits," or, he definitely knew because he could draw energy from
Yeah.
the ether. So let's look at even going back to the days of Tartaria, which was believed was completely,
Oh,
so, they had power sources and their buildings reflected on that. Everything had these rods, these towers that could draw energy from the ether, which is exactly what Tesla was able to do. So with that being said, okay, if there is energy in the ether itself, you don't need thunderstorms, you don't need any of it. They, as all ethereal beings, doesn't matter dimensionally where they're coming from, could all draw from the energy source provided by the ether. Free energy.
hmm.
So I think people need to think about that.
Okay.
We had that
So
harness back in Tartarian
given
days.
that we, yeah, given that we have this ether that's there, and it was actually pulled off the periodic chart at one point,
Mhm.
there was if it's there, it must have ebb and flow though, because sometimes there's no activity, sometimes there's a bunch of activity.
Mhm.
In fact, I think we're in the beginnings of a ramp up right now, at least in my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
So,
I think so. I mean, if you have a thunderstorm coming forward, and you combine that with what's already in the ether, for sure it's going to amp it
yeah,
up. It's just like giving it a good oomph. It's like yes.
yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah, I mean, we are energy. Spirits are energy. The ether is energy. There's energy all around us. We have created man-made energy all around us through microwaves, through all of these whatever G towers. You know what I mean? Like there's constant flow of
For
energy
sure.
happening all around us. You just go to Niagara Falls, for example. You want to see a combination of power.
Oh,
Tesla helped facilitate everything you see at Niagara Falls. All that energy out there, that Tesla's
mm,
huge on the Canadian side, especially. He was there. There's a monument out there to him. So you're taking the raw force of water and you're combining it with all of these generators and you drive by and you look at all of it, it is unbelievable. It would have been a monumental feat to put all that together. And that's the vision of Tesla. So Niagara, haunted as heck. That's all I'm going to say. I would have used a whole
is
other
it
word.
really?
Oh, yes, yes. That's where the other house was, right along the river. It was just like, I'm sure you could
Oh,
see that thing from freaking space. I'm sure. It had such energy about it. And it was just no matter how many times you clear it, it just kept going, kept going, kept going, kept going. But you are so close to all of these
yeah.
power sources, and it's a huge UFO spot. Huge for UFO
Oh,
sightings.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's
Don't
intriguing.
get me started. That's just, I can't tell you the amount of sightings and experiences I've had just with ET, with UFOs. That doesn't even touch on the paranormal. It doesn't touch on the cryptids. It's everything. It's an entire both sides of the border. Melee of crazy.
Huh.
I know.
That's
See?
intriguing.
I'm the gift that
It's
keeps on
intriguing.
giving, Tim. Admit it. Yeah. Right.
Niagara.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I know.
Come on.
But, yeah.
Wayne had an interesting thing about the periodic chart and said that there was something to it, that it was pulled. And the powers that be want to hold on to that knowledge, keep it for themselves. Yet, personally, I don't see it being utilized. Do you?
No.
They stole this idea, and yet I am not seeing anything that points that they're utilizing it.
No.
For themselves.
I don't think it's sad, but I don't believe that anything that benefits the whole comes without a price. And sometimes there's technology that is meant for some and not for others. But even he knew that. It's interesting. We had a guest on the show last night, and we were talking about a book that they had written, and it was about channeling a lot of these powerful people. And one of them was Tesla. And he was a bit confused as to, but it's free energy. I don't understand where they're missing. What are they missing? It's like, oh, well, we all know why, but but it's a different time. But again, you don't get it for free. But he even acknowledged that there was some governments, and he understood there were reasons why some stuff can't get into the wrong hands, and he knew, and it was said that he was a team player. I mean, Philadelphia experiment. Can we talk about one of the biggest, some paranormal people would say, you know what? This is a paranormal event in a way, total.
It is. Go ahead.
The Elridge is gone. He was instrumental in that.
Oh,
right. He was. He
used
did
a lot
all
of
the
his stuff,
generator work on that. Right. People come back fused into the ship. Like this thing moved. It was gone. So that's a high strangeness at its finest, and Nikola Tesla was a part of that. Right?
Yeah. And it went to, where was it? It went from something to Virginia and back?
Yeah. Yeah, from Philadelphia. So it moved and came back, and it was just like, some people were gone, completely gone. They never returned with the boat, the ship, rather. Other people were fused into the ship. So there's technology out there that, far supersede anything that we could have an understanding of. But he did. He had an understanding, and if you get into the whole, the fact that a lot of Tesla's papers went missing, his work, his files by Donald Trump's uncle.
His uncle, yeah.
Via FBI, it kind of links to the whole time travel Trump thing that is going on, and the things that he is well aware of.
Oh yeah, because Baron Trump as a little kid, his adventures
with his friend Don, and it goes beyond that because it talks about their address, where they live. So it's easy to read a book and manifest these things to happen, but there were just things in it that kind of made you go, "Huh." We knew Tesla was working on that technology as well. Obviously, with Philadelphia experiment, we knew it was a thing, but it's like, how much of a thing? And when I researched it and did somebody else's show on it and talked a little bit about it on one of my own shows, it was just like, there's something to it. There's something to it. It's fascinating stuff. So yes, drawing from the ether. Taking that energy, storms, everything. There are patents, people.
Well,
there are weather patents right now. Lightning, thunders, hurricanes. Think about that. You can find it. Nobody's hiding it. It's all online. You can find it all. Why would there be patents office. For all of that, Tim?
You just got another number.
Why would there be patents?
Say one more time.
Why would there be patents to that,
exactly.
Tim?
I mean,
right?
Exactly.
It's a whole other show, but boy, oh boy, I know.
Well, we got an hour and a half. We could dip into it if you want
I
to.
know. Yeah. There's just there's just so much. Somebody's figured
The
stuff out.
Can I ask you to repeat that? I lost your sound for a second.
I probably don't remember. No, no, it says somebody is harnessing that. Somebody has a technology for that. Think
Oh, I know.
CERN, think
Absolutely.
HAARP without tagging anything. Think about those things.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's
exactly.
good for an uncensored show. So I know.
I like it. We'll talk about it.
Oh, I've yeah,
We're
I've done it on my uncensored show on Beyond the Outer Realm. There's lots there, and I think that there are things that are just hidden in plain sight as well. So it's just
yeah,
everything. I believe everything is connected. Everything is full circle. I believe with everything that is being played around with the ether, with the environment, it's it's no wonder that we have the activity that we have. So I guess the key, I mean, here's a question for you, and here's a question for everybody else. Do we think that there was more paranormal activity back in the day? Or, because I've heard some researchers say there seems to be less now than what there used to be today, yet there's more people who pass. Should there not be more activity? My question is, should there not be more
mm,
activity because of everything, all these power sources and messing over the environment that amps up a lot of this stuff? What are your
right.
thoughts?
My thoughts. Well, I'll tell you about a hunt I did at a college that had just installed solar all over their campus.
Mm.
Mostly the parking garages, but I mean they had it on their buildings, and they had this one section where they put all the capacitors, big capacitors like the size of a Buick. You know, they were
Yes.
big, and they were all stacked together. And
Hmm.
we're getting our equipment ready. One of my guest investigators that night has the old school EVP meter that's, no batteries, but it
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
measures,
Yeah. Right.
and he says, boom. He shows it to me. It's boom, boom, boom. And it was like a heartbeat. It was like capacitors because we got closer and it became more erratic. So it started
Yeah.
sending out these weird pulses, and I bet it's on a different frequency because we kind of re-scrubbed this. That I'd been there before,
Hmm.
is where my first case was,
Hmm.
and we scrubbed through. We listened to the audio, and all we could hear, we all actually picked it up on the audio. Boom, 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 and it's so whatever frequency those capacitors operate at somehow wiped out or pushed out all the spiritual activity, it seemed. So I
Mm.
think we have to, when we talk about frequency and energy, I think maybe that's the question. I think the frequencies we're using are kind of
Mm.
obliterating some of that activity, or at least you can't destroy energy. You could definitely move it though, and I think they're being pushed out.
Mhm.
Like the area, but I had my case a little while ago. They're in a section of town that again still has above ground power on poles and aerial, big aerial leads coming into houses.
Mhm.
Um, no 5G tower in the area
Yeah. Yeah.
really,
Yeah.
and so I don't know. I think it's frequency, specifically energy frequencies that are
Mhm. Mhm.
aiding in some of the dead spots in the area.
Mhm. That's interesting. I mean, everything is about vibration and frequency, and it is all around
Hmm.
us. But it's like, Wayne makes a good point. Is it that we have been so conditioned to what it feels like and so conditioned to the energy around us? Sometimes just because there's a lot of energy, it doesn't mean that a spirit will manifest. It may just be that you see little snippets of activity here and there, maybe
Hmm.
things moving around, maybe the odd voice. Yeah, let's face it, how many people hear, on a really quiet night where you could hear like radio voices? Is that dimensional? Is that frequency? Are we
Hmm.
picking up radio channels? Are we ourselves are receivers and we're transmitters, right?
Yeah,
It's
we
why
sure
it's not
are.
hard for physical mediums to be able to channel and tap in so easily because they are picking that stuff up, right? Ha, way to go, Sherry. Hey. Yeah, woohoo. I know. So, if we ourselves vibrate at a certain frequency, then we ourselves could be attracting spirits and letting off enough energy for spirits
Sure,
to manifest. Let's talk about negative entities. We start talking
sure.
about archons or demonics or other lower lying energies that travel from the first to the fourth dimension, sort of thing. Um, they amp up. They amp up a lot of negative activity because they can feed from that. It's what gives them the strength to be able to manifest and move around
Yeah.
because they're not in a physical body. So they're able to take that energy. People in really, in really malevolent hauntings, for example, are kind of just like feel drained all the time, or they feel they're always arguing, or addictions are
Yes.
amped up, or they have,
Yeah.
depression issues, and anything that instills fear, arguing. Well, because that's the kind of energy
Yes.
that certain beings need to, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I was going to say my clients, that these last clients, fit that mold exactly. I mean,
Hmm.
the daughter was seeing the guy known as the Hat Man or the Thin Hat Man or
Hmm.
whatever he's called,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like I said, that place was basically a fear cage with all the electromagnetic, around them. They're lucky to. It was at the peripheries of their house where the wires came in.
hmm,
The fuse box is a
hmm,
radiating nightmare. I mean, there's
yeah,
a lot of red, there's a lot of yellow, there's a few green spots too, but
yeah,
not as many as you might think with the old wiring in the house.
hmm, yeah. Have you ever noticed that there's other degrees of environmental stuff? Some locations are super through the roof active with all types of activity. In fact, even people who live over these areas may not be haunted, but are able to project energy like telekinesis, psychokinesis, like nobody's business. And when you start looking, this is where I feel like, geology and geography are so important in investigating because sometimes you get locations that have
Yes.
a lot of quartz or limestone or running water
Yep.
underneath the house. You can put far down. So water seems to be also be a catalyst on amping up energy, but so does quartz. So does limestone.
Yes, those cords.
It's
The
yeah,
client
it's all
had a creek right by their house.
see that too.
Yeah.
Try sleeping over top
Yeah.
of it though. I grew up next to a lake. Our place ridiculously haunted. However, there was also a natural spring water stream that used to come in from the mountains and behind us and come right up behind the house and work its way all the way to the water, to the lake, freshwater lake.
Wow.
So you start looking at that and you're just like, well, it's no freaking wonder. Hence, throw in the child going through puberty, going, yeah, amp this stuff up. I got
Let's do
help.
it.
Right? So, but like my poor father, he's the only guy in the house. He had my mom and the three daughters, and we're all like, you know, yeah, I know. It's just poor guy, but just like, oh my gosh. It's like lots of activity.
Yeah.
But it all factors in, right? It all
It
factors in.
does. It does.
So it's
There's
just
always that permeate, and it not always, but it does. What I find interesting is the more inner city things that
mhm,
happen are usually man-made. I was on one case where a house had burned down. It was rebuilt just by
mhm.
hand because the codes back then were kind of lax. So
Right.
this
It's
guy who
true.
didn't really know how to build houses
Yes.
built a house,
Yes.
rebuilt this house, basement walls and all. And
Yeah.
when he ran the power in from the main, again, more aerials, from the lead into the house, he just dumped it straight down. You're supposed to
Hmm.
fan it out a little bit into a
Yeah.
fuse box.
Yes.
And it was like that forever. And
Yes.
this one kid comes and finds us, and he says, I am seeing things left, right, and center. I wake up in the middle of the night, and I know something is watching me.
Hmm.
And so we check it out. We go throughout the house. We go to the room where he's experiencing all this activity. We go down in the basement. And I didn't really pick up on it upstairs, but downstairs, I'm pretty sensitive to electromagnetic fields anyway. I
Hmm.
hit this thing. It felt almost solid, and I ducked down under it. And
Hmm.
I asked the my guest investigator, "Did you feel that?" Because he walked right
Hmm.
through without
Hmm.
anything. He didn't know what I was talking about. He says, "No."
Hmm.
I said, "I think I know what's going on." So he takes out his K2 and it buries the little red lights. All the lights light up. Toxic level of EMF, but it was in a strange cone around the fuse box that reached all the way down to the basement. It was
Wow. Yeah, because you
bad. It
expect
was
it around a
super
fuse
bad.
box. Yeah, you
You
expect,
would, but I mean, that was that
but
was
the
10 foot
cone
up.
thing, yeah, the cone thing is a little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah, that didn't
yeah,
make sense. But so bad wiring is what it was. It just wasn't done properly.
yeah,
He didn't
yeah.
ground the main line
But
apparently.
but that in itself is still enough to create enough energy to bring something in, and it's still enough to for us
Mhm.
to be affected by that energy to be able to project
Yeah,
energy as well, right? So you start peeking all over the place, it's going to be like that's it. Stuff's going to happen, and it's going to get real
yeah.
pretty quick. It can sometimes be more intense than, let's say, like a standard haunting. People start
Yeah. Hey,
projecting
Parascience
energy.
is here. Welcome.
Yeah, you start
Uh-huh.
getting, you can get footsteps, you can get doors opening and closing, cupboards opening and closing,
Yeah,
chairs stacking. That's pretty much poltergeist activity. It's a projection of energy
yeah.
that over time can grow, right? So
Mhm.
that's that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There was again. I'm going to reference this last case because they literally had everything
Yeah, yeah.
happening there. There was a moment we were on a break. We took a little meal break, and we're outside with the clients, and it's cool. It's awesome outside. It feels really good compared to inside the house.
Yeah.
And I suddenly feel like someone's rushing me from behind. You get that sensation when you know you're about to be attacked, and I spin around. I was like, "Oh my god, what was that?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it felt like a big dude was charging me, and
Yes.
it seems as soon as I confronted it, it kind of dissipated. But it was a fascinating experience, and at the time we had a storm rolling in overhead, really fast moving storm too. It
Hmm.
was, but it was
Yeah.
still. I
Yes.
mean, all that energy must have just manifested giving things such a boost.
Yeah, because it's trying to suck it all out of you while they're doing it.
Yeah,
But
exactly,
that brings us to
exactly.
another question. Like, why do you think that there's so much intense spirit activity a lot in basements? Colder, damper.
Hmm. Well, there's a lot of preservation of energy in the cold. I mean,
Mhm.
it's never mind it
Yeah.
drains our batteries left, right, and center. But short of that, yeah,
Yeah.
the cold has a lot of energy
Hmm.
in not only because if you get cold enough, you can actually start to form ice crystals, and you're dealing with crystal energy, even though with
Hmm.
water. But still, you're
Yeah.
still getting to a point where
Hmm.
things are tampering down and really becoming compressed, especially at the lower levels.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of energy being stored just in the compression. It's almost like a piezo effect. If you press
Mm-hmm.
on the crystal hard enough, you get some energy out of it. So
Yes.
I
Yes.
think that's what we're looking at it probably on macro scale to
Mm-hmm. It
you know
kind of goes against the whole, like again, when I say we have, when it gets cold or the wintertime, right? So I get how the coal and the energy works differently. And then you have all the static in there, which you could see. It's just like,
Mhm.
static in the environment and the ether being able to pull from it. But it's the dampness because it removes the static. So what is it? It works in a different way. Like there's just so many things, little things that really
Yeah.
make you wonder, the combination of different things, right? Which is to me
Yes, yeah, that's
fascinating.
true. It's always happening. Our entire ecosystem, from the very small to the very large,
Mhm,
is always
mhm,
shifting in just such a way to keep
mhm,
this energetic balance, the ether, if you prefer,
mhm,
in check and flowing.
mhm,
You know,
mhm.
so
Yes.
it's
Well, let's talk a
fascinating.
little.
Go ahead,
How about wind, right?
one more
How
time.
about how about wind? Wind.
Oh, wind, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you could
Well,
hear things.
was
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's true. Sound
Mhm,
carries on the wind, on the air. Yeah.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
and wind also is a conveyor of so much moisture,
mhm,
uh, smaller dust particles, which may be electrified by the moisture. And again, you're getting an
mhm,
electrical effect if you keep rubbing all
mhm.
these things together in a windstorm. There's I think that's one of the if I remember correctly, my earth science is from a
Mhm.
gazillion years ago. That's how you get ball lightning once in a while.
Yes. Every time I hear that, I hear Ozzy Osbourne. It's all bow lightning. But they're asking about paranormal ball lightning. I freaking love that guy. But yeah, it was his answer for everything was ball lightning. It didn't matter what it was, but you have to love. Only
Ball
Ozzy can
lightning.
say it and get away with it. But no, yeah, I tend to agree with that too, and I think it's also, again, ways that people have used wind to track spirit activity have been through the use of wind chimes. Just
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I'm. You can make an argument for that,
yeah, I
although
know, yeah. Well, I'm not
at the
saying
same
put them
time, I'm not
outside and the
necessarily.
wind comes along, it defeats the purpose, but I've had people use them inside,
Yeah. Oh, I see
right?
what you're saying. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Because I mean, I grew up and I would have this part of the paranormal activity that I would have would be a small wind, literally like a wind. It could move my hair. My room was in the basement, right? Because I had to be the
Mm.
cool kid. I'm not staying upstairs with my sisters. So I got the cool room downstairs, literally. But there would be this like breeze that would go by. And the use of wind chimes would
Uh,
give me a heads up, if I was sleeping or preoccupied or reading and not paying attention and things like that. But there are people who will obviously a lot of people have wind chime. I have wind chimes outside, but if you have a nice hot humid day, no wind, and then you have something coming through just in one spot, it is really nice to have, and it also creates a frequency.
I muted myself.
I see
Sorry about
this.
that.
I'm just going, okay. I see lips moving, but yeah. So yeah. But yeah, it is interesting. I think we
No,
could use.
that's fine. Yeah, using wind chimes indoors is a phenomenal idea. I
Mhm.
wish I thought of it. That's a good.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
It's basic. It's basic. But it
Hmm.
does work. I've had people mention it before. I'm kind of like, how interesting is that? So, it's something I always keep around, and I've just conditioned myself to using. and they're great for doing frequency work and sound work and the things like that. So I think with weather anomalies and different temperatures and things like that, I truly believe they create their own frequency, their own vibration. And I think a lot of it has to do with that as well.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. I think you're spot on there. All these things are creating that
Yes.
special range of frequencies that kind of allow for all this activity to manifest to one degree or another.
Mm-hmm.
Let me have us take a break. We're going to do a quick
Yes.
station ID, and we'll be back in 15
This
seconds.
is the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and 105.3 in the Gulf Coast. UPRN Talkradio.com. Esoteric
programming at its finest. Sorry, I cut it.
There we go. It's okay. You're just sitting with the boss. So it's all good.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Darn it.
So, yeah.
I was looking at some of the chats.
Yeah, let's get to some of that for sure. Great comments and questions.
Yeah, really. Someone's mill fell over. Oh, Sherry, I'm sorry. It sucks. Walls. Okay, this is an interesting question from Parascience. So here's the theory I have, he says. So imagine someone lives in a house for many years. Does their residual energy from maybe their aura, does it resonate into the surroundings, the walls, etc.? That could be the case, but I think from my perspective, Michelle might have a different one. I think we might be looking at something environmental underground that's keeping them there, that was able to record that essence. I don't think wood is the best conductor, although it does absorb radiation. So that's something to consider.
My thoughts are a little bit different. I agree with yours from that standpoint 100%. But I believe that we are very powerful beings. I believe that every time you have an emotional moment, whether it's opening gifts at Christmas, whether it's yelling at your significant other, whether it's, just whatever, conversing, whether it's any type of energy exchange, any type of projection of energy, ends up leaving an imprint in time and space. I do believe that. I believe it's why sometimes it's good to cleanse your space more often. If you have an argument one day in one room and you show up 2 hours later, wonder why you're feeling foul, might be because there's this energy that just gets trapped in the environment. I think if you passed away in the house back in the day, people were born in their house, died in the house, the land sustained you, you were buried on the land. Like it was very centered around the homestead sort of thing. And whether that place is gone and they put a brand new house on it, it's still ingrained with the intention of the land being your survival is very much a thing. And I truly think that when you die, if you die in that time and space, wherever you die, it leaves such an imprint. This is why battlefields are just so intense. I mean, you leave the release of energy from the physical into, the next realm is so intense that there have actually been documented accounts of some places throughout the world where people have passed away. And one that sticks out of my mind is that of an elderly lady who died in this really small town. So the deaths didn't happen all the time. There weren't that many people there. And they described the sound as similar as like a sonic boom. It's like the town, the whole area just shook and they thought they were having an earthquake. And the person at the time who was on site with I think it was her mother, heard the sound literally at the moment that mom took her last breath and released. And I started reading up on that a little bit, and it happens more than we think. So what kind of a transference of energy is that? How powerful are we? At least some people. You go to a battlefield and you have all of this death happening all at one time, and then you have all of the angst and the fighting beforehand. That's going to leave an imprint. And I believe that on a smaller scale within our personal homes, where we've had so much of our lives shared there, so many loves and losses and good memories and foul memories, that stays in there. And I always recommend, cleanse the house, even if it's more about your intention. Just clear the space. It's like starting a new day every day, so you don't walk into that. So it does stick.
Oh yeah, Gettysburg is a perfect example of what sticks.
Done that one a couple of times. Oh yeah, I had
I mean,
experiences in Gettysburg.
I've had friends who've had pretty intense experiences. I'll tell you
Yeah.
about one actually.
Yes.
Some friends of mine were friends of friends actually were doing a film out there, and they were wrapping up, and they had this big, beautiful antebellum style house. I think at one end, or just outside Gettysburg. I guess that's what it was. That
Mhm.
was where they were holding this little, final party, right?
Mhm.
And there's food everywhere. Everyone's having fun, having a good time, catching up, saying goodbye. What have you. Everyone's going to go separate ways to do other projects and so forth. And the food was plentiful and piled. And you know how they strike, how catering companies kind of really show it off, and they put up in mountains of food. Um,
Yes.
so they're partying along, and there's this little kid in the doorway, and he looks like he's still in his beef kind of outfit. The slightly tattered blousey shirt
Yeah.
of the day. The Civil War days, and the
Yeah.
knickers, not underwear knickers, but knickerbockers. The
Yeah.
longer short pants, like a drummer boy might wear.
Yeah.
And he's sitting there, and he looks so forlorn. And a couple of the producers or someone on the crew said, "Oh, hey, come on, we got tons of food.
Yeah.
Join us. It's okay. You were part of the crew too. You should be enjoying this every bit as much as
Yeah.
we are." And the kid just stares so longingly at that big plate, big platter, big spread of food.
Yeah.
Come on in, come on in. He wouldn't move. He just kind of slinked away, and they go, no, 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 no. It's like, does this kid just not understand what I'm saying? And so one of the crew go out there and follow the kid, his path. He was on, like, there's maybe 2 seconds
Yeah.
difference. Walks outside, kid's not there.
Yes.
And she was looking for him. Has other people start looking for him.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
it turns out there were no children actors that final day. There shouldn't have been any kids there. So
I love when that sort of stuff happens because
yeah,
it's so unexpected. Like you're not I mean, you always expect anything can happen in Gettysburg. I mean,
right.
the strange events that I've experienced in my travels, Gettysburg's no different. But it's nice when you're just at a gathering and it's like a bonus round. You know what I mean? It's like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, was this like an experience? Yes, it was great. I remember being in Gettysburg one night, and it's a fairly new hotel, and but I'm laying there, and I'm not haven't gone to bed yet, because I like to read a little bit and stuff, and I was going to be a busy day the next day. All of a sudden, the entire room filled with a fog, and that's what I said. I'm like, oh, and I look at my friend, I'm like, what the hell? Thank God I wasn't alone because nobody would have believed me. Mind you, maybe other people experiencing it, and it was insane. It was so thick and heavy. And I'm going, I know I'm awake, and I'm like trying to check the eyes. And it was there for probably about 2-3 minutes. Like it
Okay.
wasn't just one of these. It lingered and it got heavier and then all of a sudden it was just gone.
Hmm.
So was that a representation of gunfire, gun smoke? Was it a representation of just like the fog again?
Yeah. Fog
And
of war.
that
Sure.
was like,
Hmm.
I mean, I came in late, right? It was late when we
Yeah.
got in because you don't sleep in Gettysburg, you don't do stuff. So by the time I got in there to go to sleep, I'm just kind of like, okay, this is good. This is good. Right. And
Yeah.
it happened almost immediately. Once as I
That's
got myself settled, I mean, I'm sorry, I'm going to settle down and read for half an hour. Okay.
that's
And it's
cool.
not like we're on the battlefield or anything.
But you were still near it? Were you near it?
Well, we're in Gettysburg. We're
Okay.
the smack
Yeah.
right down in there. Yeah,
Right.
for sure. I mean, is there any place in Gettysburg that's not fair game
Hardly.
for the spirit world?
Hardly.
Yeah.
I'm gonna share another story about the same film shoot. It was earlier though. They did a battle scene, and one of the ADs was rolling out on his golf cart to make sure everybody was cleared, because they have the park for a certain amount of time, and if they go over, they get dinged on the permit and all that fun stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So he's making sure everyone's back. He knows most people have checked in, but he's pretty sure everyone's back. And then as he's driving along, he passed this column of Union soldiers, and they like beat the hell. They're bloody. They're limping.
Yeah.
They got their things slung along. He says, "Hey, you guys should have been back there like 15 minutes ago.
Mm-hmm.
Hurry up. They're waiting for you. Don't forget to check in." And one of the guys waves at him and says, "Yeah."
Mm-hmm.
And he drives on.
Vibes on. I like that. Yeah.
And then he comes back eventually, and he's looking for those soldiers, those cast members, and he asks the person checking people in. He says, "Did those Union soldiers check in?
Mm-hmm.
What are you talking about?" So he explains the situation, and he says, "No, dude, no, those are the Union soldiers over there. A completely different number of people, and they're way cleaner looking. It's not like they cleaned up either. They're still got their makeup on, but it's mostly just dirt." So there's no blood, no bandages, no one's limping around. So we think he saw a ghost column.
See, I love it. I love it.
And they interacted with him, which is the cool thing.
It is. And there's some places in the world that if you go there, something most likely will happen. I've had people say to me, people will message me, "Oh, I want to go away for a weekend. Can you recommend something?" "Oh, I'll recommend something. I'll almost guarantee you." And I can't say that very lightly, where you can guarantee paranormal activity. And there was just only a couple of locations, 3 locations that I pretty much knew that it was a guarantee. And I'd say choices of bam, 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 practically can guarantee it. I would get messages 99.9% of the time saying, "Yes, thank you, holy crap. What's the next place on the list?" All right, there we go. And you can't guarantee that sort of thing, but there are those places that just deliver.
Yeah.
Right? The energy is so intense. And again, are we looking at environmental stuff in all of that? Or is, because everything leaves an imprint too. And I think a lot of that has to do, like again, with Gettysburg. There's such intensity of energy there, due to war, due to death, due to fear, due to anxiety, due to all of that. And that just leaves this big old crazy imprint right smack on that spot.
And I think from my experience and what I've even recently on this last case, I think fear is the capital frequency. I think that's the anchor point. Mm-hmm. Whatever that fear frequency is. In sound, I think it's like 4 megahertz.
Mm-hmm.
People used to use it in horror movies all the time. Like,
I know.
What's going on? I feel scared. That's not a very scary thing, but I'm suddenly frightened. And it's not even like the music is ramping up. It's just a frequency very low in the background.
Yes.
And but I think that's the anchor point, the fear frequency. Like we're emitting that frequency, especially in a wartime situation.
Mm-hmm.
You're watching your buddies die around you. You don't want to be next.
I know.
It's
It's a lot. It is very intense, and I've been to places throughout the world where war has been, not just the world wars, but ancient wars,
Mhm.
and the energy is all the same. It's funny, like it's not funny, but it's interesting that it's so because intentions are all different. People all war pretty much for a cause, but it's just the energy and the heaviness. Because I've been in places where tragedies have happened, and you
Mhm.
feel that heaviness. But there's always something about a battlefield that the energy is just so much the same, and you would think that the dynamics would change because of the area. But I think the
Yeah.
intensity of the battle and the war itself and all those emotions supersede anything environmental, anything historical. It's very, very interesting to me. I mean, there are researchers who do nothing but investigate battlefields and come up with there's so much amazing research being done there beyond just trying to get the experience, right?
Pardon me. Um,
Yeah.
there was a you said battlefield, and I wanted to talk about Little Bighorn, Custer's Last Stand in the
Hmm.
U.S.
Yes.
Apparently, if you go there, it's every bit as bad as Gettysburg as far
Hmm.
as intensity. And
Oh,
there
well,
was
it
even,
was
there's
vicious.
even,
Hmm.
sorry?
It was vicious.
Oh, it
It
was
was a
super
vicious
vicious. There's people who get attacked. Like they feel like they're getting
yeah,
stabbed.
scalped.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah.
Shot,
Hmm.
arrows entering into them, bullets
Hmm.
entering into them. They feel
Yes.
like it, and then they check, and there's nothing there. They might get a bruise,
Yeah. It,
and
it
it's
is residual energy or peeved off ghosts.
yeah,
It's not going to change. Some people in these places still believe that they are in battle, that they are
yeah,
still in the thralls of battle.
mhm,
And they're very, very passionate. Like you look at the Native American people going back then, oh boy, there were a lot of really intense battles because they were fighting for not just for their freedom, but their lives.
right,
It was insane, insane. And I mean, I get all wars about that, but I mean, the Native American people, it was a complete country takeover. It's really hard to take,
yeah.
you know.
That was
Yeah.
sad to say the least, and I
Yeah,
think
well,
largely unnecessary.
well, absolutely. But you're also looking at a different way of life, a different,
Yeah,
um, just everything. Everything is there's never anything pleasant about that, and the energy
yeah,
that is left over, and the bits and pieces that remain after any
yeah.
battle is
It's
a lot of hardship
fascinating.
that goes on for centuries.
Oh, sure.
The
It's
spirit.
fascinating. There was I forget who it was. I think he would called himself a parapsychologist. And
Mm,
he explained Little Bighorn and Gettysburg and a few other places that have that
mm,
residual lingering energy where people do get attacked. It happened at Gettysburg too.
mm,
Some of the players in that movie I was telling you about got
mhm.
kicked in their sleep,
Wow.
had their tents torn down, their camps wrecked, and one person was up as a sentry
Mhm.
just for the, just
Yes.
and he
Yes.
saw it go down. And it's like, oh, and no one was there. But
Yes.
the parapsychologist says a lot of these soldiers, especially in the heat of battle, you might take a hit and you think, oh, it's a flesh wound.
Mhm.
And you keep charging on, not realizing that your body is about 20 yards back there.
Mhm.
So a lot of these guys are just still, as you were saying,
Mhm.
going for it and still defending their
Yeah. Yes.
ideals and what have you.
They're
And I
still
want
they're
to say
still
a
gonna
big
do that.
hello to Kat. Hi, Kat from Paranormal Heart. She's on the show. Welcome.
Yes, yes. And your guest next week.
And my guest next week, yes. It'll be fantastic. We're actually going to be talking on this part 2 because I know Michelle and I are covering a lot of ground here, so Cass can
Yes.
help me cover the rest of it, I guess.
Well, it's
But
also different perspectives, which is great.
that's
This
true.
is what I love about researching all of this stuff is the various perspectives that are out there,
Yeah,
connecting the dots.
yes, indeed.
Yes.
But that idea that the spirit didn't realize his body was 20 yards behind him in a heap, and he's still charging through. I thought it was profound. It really struck me. It's oh man.
It's still heartbreaking. It is still heartbreaking. I remember being on one battle site and hearing a spirit saying, "Help me, help me."
Oh, really?
Like in a way of, because I had moved a couple of people on, and I was just like I said, a couple of like a few, and just as I was, getting into the car, but help me, I did go back. I did go back eventually. I was just like, people I were with wanted to get moving, and I was just exhausted. I was just like, I don't want to send you someplace because I'm not, fully cranked up with energy. But
Right.
but I did go back, but it was just so it was just very heartbreaking to hear.
Yeah.
But how about me? But help me. Then I felt more coming, and I'm just like, oh, okay, I'll be back. And I did. I went back, a little bit at a time, just leaving your mark. But it goes to show some are aware and they're stuck, and they are they're just they don't know how to get themselves over. But yet they're aware.
That's interesting. I've always been fascinated about what that mechanism is. Not that it's a mechanism per se, but I mean, most stories, most recountings, those who have had near-death experiences, it seems like it's like, oh, there you go. You get sucked into a vortex and suddenly you're surrounded by your family, whatever, who have passed on already. And then usually they get told, no, not your time yet, and back you go.
Yes.
But so I'm curious to know why that mechanism isn't in effect in certain places. Or is it that they blew past the gate because he kept charging on in the fight?
Yes.
I don't know. I'm just curious about that, if you have any insight into that.
As to why spirits would just go charging through?
Yeah.
What would they think they're still fighting? Like,
Yeah,
is that
I would assume so.
I think if you are two reasons. One, is it a replay? Just so it's just like a record that keeps playing. Is it a replay? Two, is it because that's what are they seeing? If they're not aware they're gone, what are they seeing that we're not seeing?
Right.
I mean, some spirits who can occupy the same time or the same space don't ever see one another. Right? Or maybe two different times, same space. There are others who do see each other, but if you're still fighting and you don't know you're gone, you're still fighting, maybe they're caught in that one space within this realm where they literally are still experiencing it, and there are others still there. So we're just seeing this activity. We're seeing snippets of a movie playing, or snippets of an event taking place within our space, but just a different time. My thoughts, for what it's worth.
Interesting.
It's all perspective at this point, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
just
I know.
what we're offering up.
Yeah, that's all we got, folks. All we got. Yeah.
I was reminded of someone who had a near-death experience. Name escapes me, but they said something kind of interesting, and it kind of relates to the whole heaven hell aspect of the afterlife. And what they said was, in my near-death experience, what they were regressed. I didn't go to heaven. I went to hell, and there was a waiting room type situation there.
That's comforting.
Yeah, exactly. So he is, I guess the better way to put it was a hellscape, it wasn't hell per se, but what you might expect, it's all volcanic activity or something like that, a lot of charred ground.
Yeah.
And he's saying when he was down there, he saw, and this is kind of leaning into the whole alien activity thing. He saw what he perceived to be saints, angels, and he also saw what are more commonly described draconian, like aliens, like the big ones with wings.
Yeah.
And he said, I didn't know what to make of all that, because there seemed to be a mix of so many things happening in front of me.
Yeah.
And then it's like he got kind of escorted into this waiting room and then escorted right back out. Or like telepathically, no one was with him. He just saw these beings kind of against the wall, so to speak. And he was escorted right back out. That's when he woke up from his experience.
Well, I mean, my thoughts on draconian sort of thing are something in its own, because there's a very strong belief that they've been here this whole time, that they were here long before us. They tend to think that the planet belongs to them. Draconians, reptilians. There's many different beings that share this sphere with us, and you have a battle going on. It wouldn't be uncommon to think that you would have beings like this. Whether they're fighting alongside you or fighting against you might be a little bit unnerving, but the whole, the hell thing for me, I look at very much as, again, as a dimensional thing, a state of mind, conditioning. I believe everything is dimensional, and that's the only way I can describe it. I don't necessarily go up, down, because that feels more physical to me, up, down, but dimensionally, there are lower dimensions that, I could see people going to and experiencing something very lower level, energy wise. I there's so many theories with that, but same with rising up. I just think it's part of evolution. You end up in upper dimensions where you are evolving, and or you just come back and get it again. So, which leads me to think, is this purgatory? Soul school. This is what this is.
Soul school, right? School. Yeah, gotta learn your lessons.
I know, but it's not a.
I like Parascience's.
Yeah, I think
little comparison to Beetlejuice waiting room. It's funny.
Oh, I know. So you see, we just don't know exactly.
We just don't know. Yeah.
Yeah,
we only have other people's experiences really to kind of inform us, and we don't even know that they're necessarily real.
Yes, exactly. But I don't know. I think that we experience things every single day. I think we just maybe are either so conditioned to it, or that we're not conditioned enough. And I think it's interesting how some people in the field will look at things even like barometric pressure. I mean, I'm very sensitive to energies, frequencies, all of that. I always have been, but for me, like everybody else, barometric pressure, sometimes I will feel it like with my head just drilling me, but some people will feel that different parts of their body will be affected. They'll feel lightheaded. For me, it's just straight on, like, zzz, I feel that. And I just find that, how does that play? The only way I could think, because this is something that researchers think, like, oh no, everything, even the pressure changes. I don't know exactly how that would affect paranormal activity per se, but I know it could affect our perception of what's going on. If you're feeling lightheaded, for example, you may, so does that just change the dimensions of our time and space a little bit with this constant pressure? A headache is going to make you, probably react differently to things that you're experiencing, things like that.
It could be a factor of actually deflecting your attention to one degree or another.
It could be.
When it comes to absorbing
attracting
information.
It. Yeah, for sure.
It could be attracting it as well.
I think it falls into mediumship. People who are just very sensitive to not just the spirit world, but to the environment. I think you'll feel it in different ways, and that will affect your perception of what's going on.
Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
zap, zap.
Zap, zap.
Zap, zap. I don't know.
If we're to say, I think we're in agreement that weather, the environment, can affect and even supercharge spiritual activity, among other activities. Would we then be able to, for instance, I've always wanted to, it'll never happen, but I've always wanted to see if a possession, which is, whether it be a demon or someone malevolent. God, I cannot talk today. If that person, if it's energy inhabiting or overlapping energy, could we degauss somehow that energy, the negative energy, degauss it like with a device? Because there's
like
degausses in all television.
Yeah,
kind of. Yeah, it'll just turn
zap,
it just
zap. Yeah,
zap zap, like you said.
yeah. I think it would depend on what the what the energy is doing, what kind of energy you have, what kind of things are going on in the environment, because some things ramp up energies, some things can deplete energies.
That's true.
So if you are, at the end of the day, is there a device that can, remove something? I don't know. Is there some things that can amp up energies? For sure. You take out your cell phone, give it something just like battery, anything to draw energy from, that part's easy,
Yeah.
right? Removal is hard unless, even if you depleted all the energy within the space, there's nothing you can do about ethereal type of energies. There's nothing you can do about the fact that the individual who may be, if we're talking possession, be possessed at the time, this energy is feeding off the energy of this person. So even if the individual gets completely depleted, only at that point, and usually it's upon death, where these things will willingly just leave. Forced out, I think, has more to do with intention, which means your energy better be top notch. Intention and the strength behind the words, the intention behind the words, behind the act. I think this is why people who train for this sort of thing are able to do it. Otherwise, you better be able to get in there and just, can it be done remotely? I think, through the years, and especially over the last few years, there have been ways of doing it remotely, where you go in as energy and you work with ethereal beings from the other side who can also come in and assist in that way. And that's energy fighting energy at that point. And it's happened very successfully.
That's intriguing. Kat asked if I was talking about an EMP device. Not exactly. I mean, it would have to be, I guess that's where the challenge would be in using a anti-possession degausser. I'll coin that term. It's not a device that exists, but you'd have to fine-tune said EMP device to just target the negative force that's overtaken an individual. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So you're halfway there. It's not a true EMP, but it's close.
Yeah.
It's
mean, technology now is going leaps and bounds. Yeah. So it's hard to say what will be, what will work, what won't. I think if you have a human spirit attach itself, which is easy, not, some of them have been known to jump into people. You hit walk-ins, things like that, step-ins, might be a bit easier. But if you're talking about, like the demonic realm, for example, you're dealing with some pretty powerful energetic beings. Whether we really know what these beings are they, a dimensional thing? I think so. I think there are beings out there that have been we have been conditioned to call certain things. Many religions throughout the world have their own versions of what these things are. And the consensus definitely lies in the fact that they're very powerful beings. But I also know with mindset that you can push them out. I've seen it done. I've seen people sort of just completely get themselves out of position, out of potential possessions, and so on, removing attachments just by there's a whole step of things that you can do. It's a whole other show, but it definitely can be done. I've seen it numerous amounts of times, numerous. I've worked with people all over the world that I've never come face to face with that I've helped just achieve it on their own.
Nice.
So, not weather related.
Not weather related, but energy related. So we're kind of
energy related, correct. Even before that sort of thing, just back in the day of just dealing with people. Yeah.
And Kat, I'm going to throw your little statement up here, Kat. Who says, wouldn't it be interesting if possession would be easily taken care of with an EMP? That's kind of what I'm talking about. But a degausser is an anti-EMP, if you will. So it just depletes the energy, just completely ionizes it. So
yes,
thank you, though,
but you still have to bank on the energy. If we are talking a possession, right, not just something that is hanging around in the background, possession,
a possession.
That entity is within the individual, and it doesn't matter what equipment you're going to use per se. It is drawing energy from that individual because it has stepped into that individual. And when that person loses energy, they're either really far gone, depleted, and, they can rest, they let them sleep to bring back some of that energy. But at the end of the day, that person becomes a battery for this thing. Mm-hmm. And the only time that, the energy will be completely gone and not able to replenish is upon death.
That's fortunate. This is why I wanted a degausser, but okay.
Well, yeah, but again, like you can with a degausser, you can work with that. But if the energy is within the individual, you would have to deplete that individual's energy. This thing, they're inside, they're drawing from that energy.
I would submit that the individual and the possessing entity have different frequencies, and that would be the goal, is to have that, so isolate the frequency,
not
somehow.
Energy based. Yes. Yeah.
I assume energy based. So that possessing entity's specific frequency or range of frequencies would be what's targeted in them.
That's what you would have to. Yeah, you would have to go on frequency, not so much the energy, because it's drawing energy from that individual. It's really it's almost like, I hate to say it, almost feels like it's a science, but I guess in a way, you'd have to be able to figure out. How do you figure out, with the frequencies? I would imagine would have a lower frequency.
Okay.
Right, lower vibration. You would almost have to tap into something like that.
Okay. I think it's doable, but that I suspect it's doable, I should say.
You know what? I think there are people out there that if they're in that predicament would say, yeah, try. What have I got to lose?
Right? Let me rip the cable out of the lamp, and we'll just go right with the raw power. I'm kidding.
Yeah.
Defibrillate you, even though you don't need it.
Yes.
Yes. Let's see. I have a question about technology from Parascience. Do you think technology will bring us closer to being able to contact other realms or dimensions, for example, the quantum realm? I think they actually are working on something like that right now. I read somewhere there's something like a quantum antenna that's being developed to be able to tap into various realities, so we can learn. I'm not even close to kidding you. I forget where I saw this, but they're developing a quantum antenna that can see other realities, so we can learn from them, maybe to one degree or another, mostly to grab their technological secrets if they're more advanced than us than these other realities, and modify our own existences. Make our lives better. But yeah, they're working on something like that somewhere.
Mm-hmm. I think, I always lean back to we are machines. We are energy.
Yeah.
We can tap into all of that. It would be easier to, and I trust it more. I trust more in myself than I do in some of the technology they're putting out there.
Mhm.
Um, I believe through training, meditation, you can connect to all ethereal beings. You can open yourself to having extraterrestrial contact. Um, and, I believe that we are the answer to all of it. So
Well,
that's that. I wouldn't
we're
trust
humans.
anything that CERN does, or HARP for that matter.
Yeah.
Got to
Um,
got to tap that to figure that out. But that's there. Believe in you. Believe in you.
yeah.
I stick to that very, very strongly.
Go people.
Yeah, exactly.
I like it. Um,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm reading Cat's
Yeah.
thing. Years ago, I saw on the news someone from CERN said they were working on, I guess, a quantum antenna. Maybe that's where I heard it from. I remember thinking that's a good idea. Now I can't find anything about it on the news. Yeah, it
I
was a long
bet
time ago.
not.
I'm sure.
I bet you can't.
Yeah, I'm
There
sure
has
someone
science.
leaked it and then it got yanked.
There are scientists. A scientist came out and whistle blew and believed that when they had powered it up, that there was something to do with beings that were coming through a portal
Yeah.
there. It created a portal, and that there were things coming through, different beings, different dimensional beings. Some were extraterrestrials, some were just some pretty terrifying things.
Mm.
And of course, they shut her down right away. And then I believe another scientist somehow substantiated it. I have screenshots of said interview, but I'm sure you could find this on YouTube. It's floating around where they show a video based on the article. You're all
Hmm.
welcome. You're all welcome.
Go find that.
Yeah.
I wish we had a way to put that up.
Yeah, I know. There are ways that you can do it, but you'd have to find it to be more prepared for it. But yeah, I can try
Right.
to find it and send it to you for your next
Oh, that's a good
next
idea.
interview. But if it's a pre-record, though, I don't know if you're pre-record, obviously can't do it now. But there are ways. There are ways. So there are things out there that we just do not know about. But there's also ancient technology. You get into old stargates and old portals where a lot of these ancient sites built structures upon. They're not easily accessible, but some of them are wide open and you can. Portals are created every single day by everyday people, just so you know.
Oh yeah. I think we had a discussion about that the other day, or last time you were on. These
Yes,
poor people opened portals, didn't even know it, and
it's
disappeared.
true. Yeah, it's true. And some people purposely open them just, to
Yeah.
to travel. But there are natural power spots all over the world. The ancients knew where they were because they were
Oh,
tuned
sure.
in, which is why I'm saying you can tune in. That's what we are built and designed to tune in. It's just been suppressed in us. We've been conditioned to not use it. We've had our pineal calcified, where there's
Mm.
reasons that things have been put into our bodies. There's reasons that things are into the food sources, blah, 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 without going on and getting us flagged. There's reasons for all of it, right? There's reasons for all of it.
Yeah.
And it's to keep us asleep.
So wake up, people. Seriously, do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Zap zap.
Zap, zap. Exactly. It's a grand thing. And when it happens, it's called an awakening. And some people are just like,
Yes.
how did I not see that? They
Yeah,
know.
it's fascinating when it happens, isn't it?
Yes.
It's
Well,
fascinating.
let's get back to lightning strikes. Look at people who've been struck by lightning. I mean, there were reports this one guy I read, he'd been struck like 6 times and survived. And he's like the super medium now. So thinking
Is it
electricity,
really?
like, it's insane. I'm like, you survived this. But then you look at Baba Venga, right? She was struck by lightning, and her eyes literally burned out of her head. So she's blind. And she died in the 80s, I believe. But she was an incredible medium. She would have premonitions to the point where the president of the country she was from. Don't want to say that right now because I'll get flagged for sure because of other things going on with it. But the president of that country used her as a counsel to be able to see what was going on. And she had things that she had seen to that point are already and have been happening. So this was a lightning strike as a child, and she died as an old woman who had all of these gifts and abilities. So again, there's that electrical thing on a different level, right?
Yeah. That's true. My grandmother was struck by lightning 4 times.
What the hell, right? Yeah. Not that I want to be struck by lightning, but
no, I sure don't. No.
But it goes to show you that it's that supercharge of energy, which does incredible things. We are energy. So you are essentially being supercharged. Right? Energy on energy.
Yeah, that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm reading the text.
Put it up.
Yeah, there we go. I had a vision.
Don't want dead air, Tim. You don't want dead air.
Well, we do radio too, Tim, not just medicine. I had a vision where an elevator being explained to me that this whole life, planet, etc., was designed for our true essence. It could experience what it was like to live within the physical plane. Oh, yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that theory before. Theory, explanation, whatever. But to have a vision about it, that's pretty impressive, Wayne. That's interesting. I've heard that before, that this is a proving ground. Someone said soul school earlier. That was her. So, yeah, I think that has some legitimacy. And
yes,
I think that has some legitimacy.
I agree. I think we could end up on many different places all over the universe or other dimensions. Just because you reincarnate doesn't mean it has to be here. I think if you're naughty and you're not getting the memo or paying attention, you might come back here. This is a hard place to be. It really is. It's a hard place to be.
Yeah.
You know, it's a great place to learn because it comes with many challenges. And I think that's for a reason.
I agree. Right. There has to be something to all this.
Sure is. I live it.
It has to be.
Yeah.
So, okay. Let me ask you this then. Following that idea that if this is soul school and we lose our physical bodies and we see your spirits, what happens next? Because it's still, you haven't moved on and you're still here learning those lessons, as it were, but you're still stuck in this spiritual plane now.
I'll let you know when I get there. Yeah. No, the belief is that it's free choice, that we can come back where we want to come back. And if that's the case, some people come back for karmic things. Some people come back because they have unresolved issues. So come back and do it with those that you have the issues with, or, you know, maybe that's why some spirits get grounded because it's just like the unresolved issues. But some people come back because maybe they're warriors. Maybe it's the time that we're in with a whole major change coming, and you do have these spiritual warriors that come forward, light workers that come forward. A lot of children were born, you know, you have the indigo children, the crystal children that have never been here before, but they're here now. And as adults, you're going to see this whole other wave of spiritualism, or, you know, people who can fight spiritual warfare that may have been more designed for it than many of us here now. There are various reasons why we return here. Maybe we're just evolutionary, you know, an evolutionary thing is moving the vibration of this planet, maybe actually on the move. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah. Global enlightenment, that would be fascinating.
And that'd be awesome. No more stupid stuff. That'd be great too.
Yeah. Stop the stupid stuff.
I don't do well with stupid stuff. I kind of go, just have a hard time with it.
I want that t-shirt. Stop the stupid stuff.
Yeah, stop the stupid. I know. It is like that though. Somebody will say something to me. It's totally just, did you just say to me? What is that? You know, I try to be, I try to be very gentle. I really do. But sometimes you just, you know, it could be family member too. It's not like it's always strangers. It was just sort of zinger at me. I'm like, do you not know me? You're my sister. What are you thinking? You know? So yeah, it can be fun. And then other times, not so much,
Yeah.
you know, but we're on a journey and we're all here for different reasons. And I think I believe if we don't get it right here, that you will come back and get it right. And even though you think you have it right, maybe there's somebody in your life has a bit of conflict within themselves due to you or your actions, or maybe they just need you to help them through it. You know, maybe you had a bad relationship with a family member and they'll bring you back, or you may inadvertently bring them back to try to resolve it. So I always say, get it right while you're here so you can go wherever you want. You don't have to be stuck right here trying to keep going like a hamster on a wheel, resolving things you just can't take notice of. Stop being food for archons, just saying.
Right. I like that. I like the way you said that.
Yeah, right? That's what we are.
Yes.
Little hamsters on wheels, just little generators for archons. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Tell
a
me I'm
lot of
wrong.
I know. I don't think you are, but
Yeah. I know.
interesting. No, so I'm reading the chat and I'm looking at all the different comments that are coming. And they're kind of having their own conversation, which is
They,
fascinating.
but that's what happens, right? It
That-
just
well,
generates.
that's okay, you know.
That's what takes
They-
you in different directions,
Yeah.
right? The chat. I love my chat people. I think
The
they're
chat
awesome.
people
They're just
rock.
very so insightful, right?
Yeah, they
Great.
are really. They're very insightful. They have a lot of good things to say.
Mm-hmm.
Someone kept mentioning Dolores Kennan. I'm
She's
afraid
brilliant.
I don't know who that is.
Yeah, she was a very gifted medium. And she knew exactly what was going on. A lot of people followed her because she was very, very insightful. And you can still see her stuff. I believe her organization is still going, just other people running it. You can find tons of Dolores Cannon stuff online and worth a listen and worth reading any of her stuff. Interesting perspectives and will make you think. Really make you think. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So, but this has been fun.
Yeah, it has been. We've
Yeah.
had a very good conversation. Very good conversation.
Yes. Wayne, I'm a fat hamster on a huge wheel. Wow. No,
Hamster.
you're not. I know you. You're on
That's
the
pretty-
wheel, but you're not a big fat hamster. What a guy. So, hence my life. Yeah.
I'd have to get out of the garage if we had to stop at the stoop. That's kind of funny.
Yes. Yes.
That's pretty
But you
funny.
know what? At the end of the day, we're all on different journeys and we all have to do what is right for us. And you don't want to be one of those spirits in the end who are just stuck and wondering what do you do next? You're here. You may not have somebody, here that can help you on if we don't get it right. And it just leads to so many other different things as to where do you go when you leave here. There's a strong belief that there's a cycle of reincarnation. You know how they just glorify reincarnation?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, come back, what's your past life? Who are you related to? Blah, 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 blah. And, with that being said, there is a strong belief that we just recycle back into this time and place and we don't actually make it to the real spirit realm. And that the birthing process, when you go to the light down the tunnel,
Yeah.
and you come back out and you're like, holy shit, I'm born. I didn't even get a chance. I just got popped through the door. Some people that's absolutely not correct. But there are some researchers, which is what we're talking about, different perspectives of the paranormal, who believe, hey Mish, who believe that could very much be a thing, that you almost have to step away from the conditioning of going to the light and step outside
We
into
were
and
talking
stay
about that
within,
earlier in the chat. Yeah.
yes, to stay within the darkness, which will take you to the actual spirit realm and not recycle you back in here.
Hmm.
So again, different perspective.
This is true and very fascinating. I might add.
Yeah.
We have about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Or 10 minutes. No, 5 minutes. I was right.
Yes.
Let's briefly go to the chat and see what's going on.
Good idea.
Kat said different journeys meet up from time to time along the road and share our experiences. That's a great notion. That speaks exactly what we were talking about. Going towards the light, Wayne writes, I'll put it up on the screen. Hearing voices of loved ones encouraging us forward is us coming through the birth canal back into this world. You were just talking about that.
He lives with me. He knows how my brain works.
And
he gets it.
He gets it. I heard another theory along those lines that it wasn't so much that upon our deaths we enter the tunnel of light, and from that point we can create our own path. You spoke of that earlier. And the fella I heard took it a step further. He says, when you go to the light, that's your last moment to kind of create your own destiny, your own heaven, if you will. And he says, yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. You know, I pass, my spirit goes into the light, and I'll have my own heaven, my own ideal existence.
Or are you just put to sleep for a while until they're ready to throw your essence into another body?
Could be. Could well be.
I hate to be that guy, but
Yeah,
is it like a Matrix thing, right? Plug me back in. Plug me back in. I
Give me the blue pill. Give me the blue pill.
I know, like we don't really know, but I think that it's so traditional, and I've just learned that conditioning does not always lead you down the right path, but sure makes for a good food source.
Yeah.
You think outside that whole ethereal box, it's like it's a good food source, keeps everything going, right?
True. I mean, yeah, there's got to be some sort of recycling happen to one degree or another, right?
Well, there's some essences that I think do make it out. And if you think about it, have you ever tried, through mediumship to try to come in contact with certain individuals who for sure have passed on? It's not like Elvis. It's like, Elvis isn't here, Okay, obviously Elvis got put into witness protection. He's not dead, right? This is like one of the theories going around. But have you ever tried with somebody you actually know or know of and say, try to, as a medium, to connect with somebody and they're just like, no, they're not here? Is it so easy to communicate with people through technology, even doing EVPs or even the ghost boxes in some ways, can be, especially if you use really old radios and connect your devices to them back, like real radios. Don't forget apps, forget all that stuff, right? Where it's easy to manipulate. And then they're just like, no, we don't know who that person is. Is it because of all of these other poor souls are just recycled around, just waiting to have a body to go to? But those who went outside of it, who instinctively knew to go elsewhere, are in the true spirit realm?
Wow.
I know. Bam. Big bam, I know. But this is the type of things that go through my head. It's like, wait a minute, it's possible. Like maybe we need to step outside the conditioning and follow our instincts. Is this one of the reasons that we've been dumbed down with instincts, or having instincts, or being encouraged to use these instincts or these abilities? A religious conditioning tells you, oh no, you should never use that. It's just a witchcraft, or it's, but we're born with it. The creator's given us these instincts. So a lot of times you might be looked at as a survival instinct, fight or flight, that kind of thing.
Sure.
But should we not follow those same instincts or try to draw on them in that last moment? Because there's just, you don't know.
You just don't know. And on that fantastic note, we will end our show. Much thanks to Michelle Desrochers for being on the show with us today. And to the chat people, thank you so much for being on the show. My name is Tim Sudano. This is Paranormal Insight. Quick programming note, the next 2 weeks I'm on pre-record. Kat is going to be on the show with me for part 2 of this discussion. And that is all. Have a great rest.
If you have a paranormal experience that you would like to discuss on the show, please email us at paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com. That's paranormal.insight.podcast@gmail.com.